Hi guys, it's Kelly. I'm back again with another video. This video is actually part of a blog hop for the My Monthly Hero October 2017 kit. So all of those gorgeous stamps come with the kit, as well as these dies to like a mountain range, tree range, the city. The dies are super cute, and it would probably be an easier way to kind of do the mountain range that you're going to see me stamp. It also has these beautiful papers in it. I didn't use them, but I wanted to show you them. It has some embossing powder and like a glossy lacquer. It's a great kit for the holidays. Lots of shine. I am doing a scene. I mean, come on, you saw those stamps. Like, there, as soon as I saw the images, and I was like, train station. That means a scene, yay! So I'm stamping on, I'm using Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock. I'm using my Mini Misty to stamp all of my first layer. You saw me kind of sketch out some hills there, just so I would know for placement wise. I'm going to mask all of these things that I've just stamped, and I'm stamping in Copic Safe ink. I used Simon Says Stamp Intense black ink. And then I'm stamping, I've loaded up the next layer and I'm stamping these. You can see on the bottom there, I had to stamp the extra cart, and my intention was to actually stamp another little toy in there. Those toys are from an add-on set. They have such great add-ons with this kit. But I didn't, and then there was like a gap between the train tracks and the train station, and I wanted to fill that in. So I just stamped the tracks again, and then I didn't realize I never stamped my other toy. So sorry, little Billy, you're not getting your reindeer because I didn't stamp it. It does have like a cute little like reindeer stuffed animal. That's what was going to go in there. So now I'm going to go ahead and do the mountain range. So that the blue that you see is Eclipse masking paper. I've just previously used it with Distress Oxides. It still works great, so I saw no reason to cut a new one. Stamp my mountain range, masked all of those, and then I'm going in and doing the sky with some Distress Oxides. So when you're using masks and they have like a pointy top, they're much easier to peel up. So I took the Salty Ocean from the bottom to the top, and now I'm taking all of the other ones from the top to the bottom, so that way I'm not really bumping into those masks too much. So I went Salty Ocean, Wilted Violet, Faded Jeans, and then Black Soot at the top, which doesn't really blend great, but once you go back over it with the Faded Jeans, it was fine. I put on some flicks of Clean Clear Water, and then of course the flicks of Perfect Pearls. If you've watched anything that I've made recently, you know this is my current obsession. So I flicked those on as well. And then the one other thing that I'm going to do to just add some stars is I'm going to use white acrylic paint. And I am going to add a little bit of water to it to change the viscosity so it's a little bit more fluid. And then I'm going to sprinkle that on as well. The reason I did 3 different kinds of stars is because it gives 3 different dimensions. So the Perfect Pearls is a little bit brighter. The Clean Clear Water is definitely more desaturated. So it's just a really nice look, a really dimensional look. I'm putting these masks back in place. I wanted to add some of shadow to those mountains. It was totally pointless, guys, because I ended up coloring them in. But it is not for the hills. This is how I'm going to create the hills. So when you're coloring an object white, you've heard me say this with Copics before, you're only adding the shadows. When you're doing hills that are snow hills for a background, it's the same premise. So I'm putting these masks down, and I'm actually inking up the bottom of those hills because the white peak that I'm masking is going to come to the forefront. So there on the bottom, I had no intention of putting a hill here, but my mask was a little bit too short. And so I ended up getting some ink where I didn't wanted it. It's totally cool. We're just going to roll with it and make that into another hill. It was fine. So I'm just kind of moving it around, trying to get different snowbanks. And I do want to note that this is the Salty Ocean of regular Distress ink, because I just feel like I get a little bit of better control over how much ink is on my foam pad. When I pulled that up, I realized that the tree trunk, or the Christmas tree mask was actually stuck to it. So when I did the distress inking, I did it with no mask in place. Thank God it was just the tree, because I knew the colors would be dark enough to cover it up. I had intended on doing the train station in white, so had it been there, it would have been a real problem. I picked some warm grays to do my mountain range, and so I'm starting with my darkest color. Usually I start with my lightest, but for this, because I was trying to get the outline of the mountains, I just went ahead and started with my darkest. I filled in the bottom portion maybe about 3/4 of the way up with the W9, and then I'm going to go back in with the W7 to just fill in that bottom portion. I was looking for like I guess more of a gradient as it would get lighter toward the top. It would be darkest where it was behind that hill. And this is just kind of like a fun way to break up your scene from just your typical night sky. I really liked the mountains, and just by masking them and changing the levels at which I stamped them, it gives variety. So it looks like a full mountain range versus just the same stamp over and over again. So then I went in with the W5, capped it off with the W3. And then as I was looking at it, I just didn't, I didn't love it. I didn't love the way that it looked. So I'm going to go in and do the snow. And this is how I'm going to do all of the snow on all the buildings. I'm going to add some B00 on the bottom, and then blend that out with the B00. I am going to leave white on the top though, because snow is white. I'm just kind of adding in those shadings, giving it a little bit of color. Since I didn't like the W's, I'm actually going to go in and make them a little bit more purple. If you've watched my video before, you've seen me do this trick where I do shading with one color and then change the color by going over it with another Copic. So I picked the BVs to make it just a little bit more purple, and I ended up actually pulling out a BV04 to do the darker portions. But this is a great little trick to try if you've colored something and you really don't like the way that the color has turned out, or if you don't have a lot of Copic markers. You can do your coloring, your shading with gray, and then go over it with another color. Because Copics are transparent, it will deposit that color over top and you'll still be able to see it. Now, it's not going to be as bright as it would be it was just on white cardstock, but I don't need it to be in this case. I'm not looking for it to be bright. I'm just looking at for it to add that tint of color. So for the train station, like I said, I'm going to color it white. My dog is barking. I don't know if you can hear that or not. She thinks she actually thinks that she owns the whole street. That is not just our home she must protect, but all of its outlying territories. So if you are a person who likes to jog or walk your dog, or go outside of your own house to pick up your mail, you are an intruder and the world must be alerted. Does anybody else have a dog like that? I love her. I do. And she's doing what she's supposed to do, even though it's interrupting my voiceover. Anywho, back to the coloring. So when you're coloring white, you want to make sure you're leaving white. You're only adding in the shadows. And so for this one, I opted to use my cool grays. That's my preferred grays, but you could do this with whatever grays that you have. So if you have the warms, or you have toners or neutral, any of those will work to color white. I'm going to go back in with the C5 and just add it just a little bit in the corners to the portions of the building that are going to be set back. Going to switch over to the really dark C's to color in the roof. And I did, like, the way that the stamp is drawn, it's like a double line on the roof. So I colored one of the lines in the same color as the roof. And then I'm going to treat the other one like a trim. So those I'll be doing in red. But I did this the same way I did the mountain range. I actually started with my darkest color. There isn't a lot of real estate here, so I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to have any bleeding, especially since the building is white. So once I had the C9 down, I'm going to go ahead and fill in with the C7. And the I guess the shading is very, very subtle. You could probably skip it if you don't have both markers. The only other time I added another color is here on the peak of the clock tower, which is totally darling, by the way. And that was the C5, just to fill in. I wanted to do the white first on the train station because I always make this mistake. I color my red and then I try to go in with white, and it's just that red carries so far. So if you're thinking of doing that, please, please, please do your whites first. You'll thank me later. It's much less of a headache. So I had originally filled in the, what are those? The columns and the trim with an R32. And then I was like, you know what? That's totally unnecessary. So I didn't even show it to you, because they're like little lines, people. They're just little teeny tiny lines. We don't need to add 4 colors of shading. Though I still did 3 because I am literally a crazy person. So I am adding those shadows on the columns. The shadows would be to the left and the right. I'm also going to do the door red. Here the shading's kind of worth it. Whichever side you prefer, I picked the right hand side because I typically color as if my light source is in the top right hand corner, so this just kind of feels natural to me, even though I'm not actually coloring with a light source in this card. But then just add darker shading to one side or the other, and it'll help the door to look a little bit more inset. I'm using a C3 and a C1 just to add some shadows in front of the building. I am going to do this to the other buildings as well. I just didn't show you that part because this video is already 20 minutes long. And it's just a lot of coloring, just a lot. So if I can show it to you one time, then that's what I'm doing and we're moving on. I picked some navies to do the train with. I didn't want to do red, even though I feel like Santa's train would probably be red. I wanted to go with a darker color to kind of balance out the top of the design because that sky is so dark. And I'm really just only adding shading from the bottom, so from the bottom towards the top. And then anywhere there's like a little compartment or there's a lip, I'm adding a shadow underneath that. At this point, I am leaving the windows blank. And once I went out to my darkest color, I'm going to go back into my lightest. This blog hop, like I said, is part of the My Monthly Hero blog hop. This video, not this blog hop. What am I even saying? Seriously. Sometimes let me tell, okay, so this is a funny story that has nothing to do with the coloring, but it is funny nonetheless, so I'm going to tell it to you. So I do my voiceovers, and I usually do it in one fell swoop. That's like it. That's all you get. I don't want to do it again. Everybody makes mistakes. I typically sound like I have no idea what I'm talking about it. And that's fine because in real life, that's exactly how I sound. So why would I want to pretend to be anything else? But every once in a while, something will catch me off guard and I will have to restart my voiceover. So I was telling my mom the story the other day. I was driving home from work. I thought I was going to crash my car because I was laughing so hard. So I was talking about something, and you know how like sometimes when you're talking, you combine 2 words, like just because you're speaking so fast or like you're so excited about something, or you just don't know how to speak, which is usually the case with me. But so I was doing my voiceover and I was describing something, and I was talking about shading, and I don't know what the other word I don't know what the other word was, but in my voiceover I end up saying sharded. I laughed. I mean, I couldn't recover, guys. I could not recover from that. I laughed for probably like a good 5 minutes, like tears streaming down my face, total belly laugh in my craft room by myself at like 2:00 in the morning. Just laughing and laughing like I was like a 13-year-old boy because I'm a juvenile. Oh my gosh. I was so entertained by myself. But anyway, so I don't start my voiceovers again. It is what it is. I'm a real person, just like you're a real person, and I see no reason why not to tell you that I'm a real person. So anyway, back to the coloring, which has been carrying on here. So you saw me color the train, all the little toys, minus little Billy's, or do we call him Bobby? Let's make him Billy Bob. Little Billy Bob's reindeer, stuffed reindeer that he is not going to get. And now I'm moving on to Santa's Workshop up here at the top. I opted to go with some browns. I thought Santa might have maybe like a little log cabin kind of thing going on. And I went with the E50s families because it is a little bit warmer, and there's a lot of cool tones in this card. A lot. So again, I'm adding that shading from the bottom towards the top. Underneath the little triangle pieces, I'm adding some shading underneath the eaves. And then also, I'm just going in with that darkest color, that E59, and just drawing lines to give the impression of kind of like this log cabin-ish look. It looks like it needs a little help right now, but once we go back in and blend those colors, it will start to look just a little bit more natural. And so I was pretty happy with the way that that came out. I opted to do the door red as well as the shutters on the windows because I just thought that that was going to be fitting. I also added some red shading to the little Santa's Workshop sign, and I just did one color for those shutters because it's very teeny tiny. And I did the same trick that you saw me do with the train station door. So now I'm going to do the roof, and I'm going to do it in some darker brown. So I'm using that E57 and that E59. And then watch me just completely color in that snow. Do you see that? That snow is hanging off the front of the roof. I just completely covered it up with brown because I had no idea. I mean, I just was like in the zone, and then afterward I was like, oh man, I covered, like, here's my moment. Yeah. So now I'm going to go in and fix it, which thankfully the colorless blender exists. It is a helpful tool. I just went over it repeatedly. You want to be careful with this because it can cause bleeding into other areas of your card. And if you're going to do it, kind of try to let it dry in between applications. Once it was dry, I went back in with the B00 and colored it blue, all of it blue. And right now it looks a little like sea green, but by the time we get to the end of it, it'll look white again. So just hang tight. Switching over now to the greens that I picked, I wanted the Christmas tree to be a little bit more, a little bit brighter. I still wanted that like blue-ish color, but I wanted to be a little bit brighter. So I'm starting with a base of a YG03, and then I just filled in all of the tree with that, well, not the ornaments, but like the tree part of it. I also had previously colored in that, I don't want to call it a stem, trunk. Whoa, it's not a stem. This thing is not a flower. The trunk of the tree with those same browns that I used for the rocking horse down on the bottom, and also for Santa's Workshop. For the shading, I'm using just the tip of my marker and some flicking motions from where they're tucked up underneath each other out toward the edges. Using a G07 for that. And then I also use that same G07 to color in the wreath on the lantern and the wreath on Santa's door up there. I used both of, I didn't feel like it needed really any extra shading. I might go, I think with the G28, I go in with the wreath that's connected to the lamppost. I added some shading to that. And again, I'm just really concentrating this darker color where those pieces meet. Any points where two parts meet is always going to be darker. So once I was out to the G28, I didn't really feel like I even needed to go back in with the 17. I just went straight to the G07 and kind of took that out to the edges. Then I pulled out a Y08 to do the stars on the tree, and then also add just two little flicks of shading to the lantern. And I'm going to shade the swag on the tree with a C3. You know I can't ever leave anything alone because I have real problems. So I'm going in with a white gel pen and adding some brightness to that snow. Here's how we're going to save that snow. I colored brown. I mean, nobody wants brown snow. No one. That's a terrible plan. I used it also to add some details. I had colored those columns red, but I didn't end up liking it. So I just used my white gel pen to make them red and white. It was really easy. I outlined all of the images in a Copic Safe pen because that's how I roll. And then this sentiment is so cute. It says, "From Santa's Workshop." And I thought that that would be really cute. And I may end up using this as the card that Santa leaves for my son, because I thought that it would be pretty fitting. So I might have to hide this one away. Some clear Wink of Stella on all of my snow, including the snow on the ground and the swag on the tree. And then that's it. I called it. That's the whole thing. So thank you guys so much for joining me. There is a giveaway. Hero Arts is doing a giveaway for this blog hop. That list will be below. Please hop over to my blog for more details and to see the add-ons. I have 2 more cards on my blog that I haven't done videos for yet. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Catch you on the next video. Bye.